they're incapable of governing themselves and benefiting their citizens because the governments there are all about looting and pillaging and lining their pockets and going shopping in Paris.
To return and help these African countries. It is not China, Russia and Wagner who will bring sustainable solutions to the very great
that are purposeful, cutting down the bureaucracy of democracy and getting things done. If you walk up into your parliament right now,
mixed situation, they should provide clean water to Flint. They should address all the war crimes that they have been committing. America has been making all the wrong decisions.
If you want to know how weak we are, and we are weak.
So a former chief of staff of the French military or the French army is saying that in the next decade to come, they want to recolonize Africa again with military force. And you remember Eric Prince, who also owns a private security firm in the US, also made mention of recolonizing Africa. I have all these videos for you and people are sharing their thoughts about this. What are our leaders doing about it? Are they hearing some of these things or they are not? Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. You don't lose anything by liking. Just give the video a thumbs up, share, comment, whatever you think and subscribe. Let's go into the video.
Look, millions of people have left Venezuela. I understand why they want to, because they don't want to live under a socialist dictatorship hell. And yes, it's easy for them to mix in lots of truly bad terrorist actors in that deluge of people running from bad governance. Look, all this talk of illegal migration in Europe, in the United States, it ultimately comes down to a contest of what is governance. Who is governed? Which countries are governed well? And if so many of these countries around the world are incapable of governing themselves, then it's time for us to put the imperial hat back on to say, we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded.
Because our own national security risk is at stake.
Exactly.
National security interests are at stake.
You can say that about pretty much all of Africa. They're incapable of governing themselves and benefiting their citizens because the governments there are all about looting and pillaging and lining their pockets and going shopping in Paris instead of actually making their country better.
People on the left are going to watch this. They're going to say, wait a minute, Eric Prince is talking about being a colonialist again.
Absolutely. Yes. Enough. Because if you go to these countries and you see how they suffer under absolutely corrupt, made-up governments that are just criminal syndicates, the people of Africa, the people of Latin America, a lot of them deserve better. Now, some countries are really getting it together. Look at what El Salvador did. Bukele, murder capital of Latin America, he said, no more. Now El Salvador is safer than Prince William County.
And he took
just
all
south of Washington.
I am convinced that in a few years, I don't know if it's 10 years or less or more, we will have the obligation to return and help these African countries. It is not China, Russia and Wagner who will bring sustainable solutions to the very great difficulties that these African countries and their populations face. In a recent announcement, the former Chief of Staff of the French armies, General François-Gérard-Marie Lecointre, has stated that France and Europe are planning a military recolonization of Africa over the next decade. This controversial statement has sparked outrage and debate among Pan-Africanists. The idea of recolonizing Africa may seem absurd and outdated in the 21st century, but General Lecointre believes that it is necessary for France and Europe to regain their influence and power in the African continent. He argues that Africa is a crucial source of resources and energy for Europe, and that it is essential to secure these resources through military intervention and control. A continent that is going to experience a demographic explosion like no other continent has ever experienced. And so, imagine that this happens in the next 10-20 years, and that it will have no consequences on Europe. The general statement has been met with criticism from many Africans, who see it as a blatant attempt to exploit and dominate our countries once again. Africa is not a playground for European powers. Furthermore, the idea of recolonization goes against the principles of democracy and self-determination, which are the cornerstones of modern international relations. Why not face this reality and stand by the rules and laws that they are creating? It is important for African nations to have autonomy over their own affairs, rather than being subject to the whims of foreign powers. This happened in the past and it shouldn't happen again. At least, not now that our eyes are wide open. While some may argue that it is necessary for securing resources and maintaining influence, the majority see it as a violation of African sovereignty and an attempt to re-establish colonial domination.
Wait a minute, Eric Prince is talking about being a colonialist again.
Absolutely. Yes.
Africa has really suffered. It's not like he lied that our problem is bad government. Africa's main problem is bad government. And our leaders are known for embezzlement. It's our problem in Africa and should not concern them more. It's not like you stay in your house, you make decisions in your house, someone comes out there to tell you that, oh, you are making bad decisions in your house and for that reason I'm coming to take over your house. Are you kidding me? This is 2024. It's so funny how America still think they have that moral high ground to judge other countries and to tell them how to run their affairs when they can barely govern themselves. If America want to prove to us that they can govern themselves, they should start by addressing their school shootings. They should start by addressing their $34 trillion debt. They should start by addressing their homelessness and their drug epidemic situation. They should provide clean water to Flint. They should address all the war crimes that they have been committing. America has been making all the wrong decisions. America is the only country where being dark-skinned means you are armed. Should we continue to talk about it? So you have no moral standing to come and tell us how to govern our country or to talk about our government system when you can barely govern yourselves. It's no longer 1800s. This is 2024. We know everything. So if any country has to be colonized, it's America because they seem to be making all the wrong decisions. So don't talk about our issues in Africa. Allow our Africa for us Africans. This is our problem. I have never heard, please, I stand to be corrected. I've never heard anywhere in this continent of Africa where an individual would load his gun, walk into a school and put down students. I've never heard of any situation where an individual in this continent walks into a church and put down worshippers. It only happens in your country. Like I said, I stand to be corrected because I have never heard. So please, if we are talking about bad government, America is number one. So you cannot tell Africa about bad government. Fix your country. Don't come and tell us what to do in ours. So I'm not going to say much to you, Eric, because you're fond of saying all the wrong things. But thank you anyways for being a fan of Africa. We love you too.
This has to be the most disingenuous man on earth, honestly. Like the way he's speaking as if we don't know what is going on behind the scenes.
It's time for us to just put the imperial hat back on to say, we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded.
Because our own national security risk is at stake.
Exactly.
National security interests are at stake.
You can say that about pretty much all of Africa. They're incapable of governing themselves and benefiting their citizens because the governments there are all about looting and pillaging and lining their pockets and going shopping in Paris instead of actually making their country better.
People on the left are going to watch this. They're going to say, wait a minute, Eric Prince is talking about being a colonialist again.
Absolutely. Yes.
That man you just saw, his name is Eric Prince, and he's an ex-Navy SEAL. But also, by the way, you might find this point very interesting. He was the founder of a private military company. This is the same man telling us that Africa should be recolonized because, we can't do it on our own, when he knows for a fact that his own people are working against us behind the scenes, hiring these puppet leaders, hiring these sellouts, and looting from us, as if that doesn't play a role in where we are right now. It's just us. We're the problem. And so the conclusion is for the West or the US to recolonize us, basically. What? Be for real. Like, be serious.
Nobody cares about us. And brothers and sisters, if you want to know how weak we are, and we are weak, look at how we are treated Last month, the world met in New York, the General Assembly. When African heads of states and government are speaking, the hall is empty. Nobody bothers because they are saying nothing. Even if they are saying something, it is something that can be ignored. Compare when an African head of state and government is speaking and when the Prime Minister of Little Israel is speaking. They will listen because we are weak and disunited. So we have a weak continent because the spirit of Pan-Africanism disappeared. So the question that we can ask, what is the state of Pan-Africanism as we speak today? The African Union, which is weak, says the right things and does the wrong things 9 out of 10 times. And what are the critical areas in which we are weak? We are weak politically because nobody listens to us. We are not trading with one another. Intra-African trade is not anything beyond 15%, the lowest anywhere in the world. If you look at all our sectors and look at them, look at our agriculture, almost all African countries are net food importers. There is not a single African country that is in meaningful technology. Not a single African country produces a mobile phone. Yet the single most important ingredient in mobile telephony is to be found in the...
Lewis Hamilton, a British Formula One driver, just said that he wants Africans to take back Africa.
And I don't like that the rest of the world owns so much of it.
I'm confused. I was told that if you wanted your country to predominantly remain with your countrymen, then you were problematic. You were a bad person.
Well, Lewis is 1000% correct. I don't know why this is controversial. Europeans control Europe. They control the resources in Europe. They control the lands in Europe. Asians control the lands in Asia. They control their resources for the most part. So why shouldn't Africans control their lands and why is this controversial? What the hell? There are 7 continents here. Most of the continents, Europeans control it. South America, North America, Australia, they are gone because they are infested with settlers here like yourself. So why is this black people in Europe? They don't control nothing. They don't control the resources there. They don't control the lands. So what's wrong with black people controlling their what the hell? And this clown has 2 million followers, yeah, and he's spreading this nonsense, and they are like, yeah, let's kick out the black people, but they don't even understand what they are saying. But wait, us black people, bro, we are stuck in the same place forever, bro. There's no hope. This guy has 2 million followers. What they will do is they will support their people. They will fund them to spread this nonsense. But when you come to our side, you have nobody to counter it. Maybe me or 2 or 3 more people, but we don't have the reach.
Africa does not need democracy.
What do we need?
It's a smokescreen of lies, which allows imperialism and neocolonialism to continue. Africa needs dictators. Africa needs military dictators.
Military, not just any other dictator.
Military for security. Dictators in that they must dictate the right thing. We need people that are purposeful, cutting down the bureaucracy of democracy and getting things done. If you walk up into your parliament right now, you'll have papers the size of this room of good ideas that have never been implemented, roads that have never been finished, buildings and hospitals that have not been repaired. But budget approved and voted. It's in the pipeline. It's in the pipeline. And in the midst of that pipeline, procurement, corruption, and preferential procurement, looting and stealing is happening. How does a minister walks into a government with 50,000 shillings become a millionaire in 2 years with a salary that can't afford 3 pairs of shoes? Where does he get the money from? Any government minister who becomes a millionaire after being to a government office is a thief.
That's true. That's very true.
There's no millionaire who becomes a millionaire through government salaries. I make that statement loud and clear. So this whole concept of democracy, it's a facade, the entertainment for the poor, to think that by voting a president into power, they've actually put a man in control. We need people like Traore, who wakes up in the morning and said, I need 3,000 trucks of road equipment on the road by tomorrow, and 3 kilometers from Ghana into Burkina Faso, they're there by tomorrow. I need a hospital there. I need an aeroplane manufacturing industry there. And you need to give a president power, the one who can decide, not the one who can steal, the one who can decide and make a change.
It was an American person that jumped on a podcast. His name is Eric Prince.
Okay.
He did a podcast where they were talking about immigration of black people who immigrate globally. Podcast, and openly says in 2024 that his solution to the immigration problem of Africans migrating to Europe and America is to go to the continent of Africa and recolonize Africa.
Absolutely not.
He said this in an open podcast.
I can only imagine. Let me get an educated guess of what he looks like. Looks a little lighter than me. Way lighter.
Just
right?
a few shades lighter than you.
Yeah, figured that. Okay.
I'm sitting up there, and you can look him up. I'll probably overlay the graphic of his political position and what he did for America.
Mm-hmm.
You said this during Black History. Forget Black History Month. We know the basic history of the continent of Africa, how it was divided up during the Berlin Conference and how European powers took over specific countries. Like, I'm reading a book on Patrice Lumumba and how, Germany took over the Congo and how this nation took over Nigeria. Those countries are just now getting free 50, 60 years ago.
Didn't that lead to the Rwanda massacre?
All that. Yeah, that's one country. There's 50 something nations. There's multiple massacres. There's multiple genocides. Yeah. Congo right now is going through something as we speak where they're still dealing with outside forces trying to destabilize their economy and Western forces funding Rwanda to destabilize them. Like, there's ugly stuff still happening on the continent, and you're going to get on a podcast and talk about my solution would be to go over and he went into detail. He wasn't joking.
Had a plan and everything.
Had a plan about how they should recolonize the continent of Africa.
My God.
So my message is to the diaspora out there. Don't take that lighthearted. Don't take it as, oh, well, it will never happen, because obviously you see what's going on in Congo and other nations. There's other ways for them to do it than to go directly in.
Yeah.
They could fund outside forces to try to destabilize a specific country and then come in.
Mm-hmm.
So to the continent of Africa and every country in the continent, please pay attention to when these people are telling on themselves.
Yeah.
Take it very serious. As John Henry Clark said, you have no friends.
Mm.
You said you found out from him in the source. That was one of his favorite quotes.
Yeah.
We have no friends.
Yeah.
When an outside force is talking about recolonizing you, not a country, but a continent, you need to be worried.
Facts.
Now, how does this concern Africa? Europe may use Trump's logic to reclaim control over Africa, arguing first that Africa was shaped by European colonization. I mean, most of the names of our countries, capital cities, streets, mountains, forests, are the creation of the colonizers, just like the roads, the bridges, the railways, the infrastructure built under colonial rule. Second, that other powers like China, Russia, Iran, Turkey are unfairly benefiting from Europe's past investments. And last but not least, that African independence was a mistake, just like Carter's decision to return the Panama Canal, according to Trump. And make no mistake, Trump won't oppose this. He is already weakening Europe's economy, forcing them to find new resources to pay the US. And that means Africa. When Trump wanted to take Greenland, Europe united against him. But when he targets Africa, not a single African country or African institution speaks up. Europe is sinking economically and has two choices: face Trump's wrath and suffer further collapse, or turn back to Africa, exploiting its resources with Trump's blessing. And what is Africa doing in the meantime? Dancing, drinking, sleeping, singing, playing, or preparing a welcoming parade for our future colonizers instead of arming ourselves, securing alliances, and strategizing the defense of our sovereignty. If we don't act, the next 4 years will mark Africa's violent and long-lasting recolonization.
So, my people, I'm sure that many of you have been following what's happening in Kenya, right? The president of France was there this past signing new agreements, new contracts with Kenya, right? On the other hand, France is being pushed out of West Africa. Our brothers and sisters in West Africa are bleeding over there. You know, decades upon decades of exploitation have left deep wounds over there, right? And today, many of those nations want nothing to do with France. Yet, even now, chaos continues in those countries. Destabilization continues. The region is under pressure, right? They are under conflict. They're at war right now. Then elsewhere on the continent, new deals are still being signed. There have been dozens upon dozens of coups on the African continent, you know that, right? And France has been responsible for more than half of them. So you see now why Africa is in such a difficult position, right? Our leaders are pulling in completely different directions here. So the real question now becomes, now that we understand our leaders may never unite Africa, and now that we also understand that African unity is the only real solution to many of our problems, right? So what are we going to do with this information? The people, Africa needs new ideas, right? The Black Beret movement was born from that painful realization, you know, that no one is coming to save us. And if our leaders refuse to unite us, then we, the people, must unite ourselves, right? I know that many of you think that politicians are the ones with all the power. That's not true, me people. The real power has always been with the people, especially the artists, right? Artists can move entire populations, me people. They shape culture, they shape identity, consciousness. But many have forgotten that power, you know, their collective power together. So this movement wants to place artists back at the center, you know, at the center of African transformation. And not just musicians, we need all the artists, you know, like painters, filmmakers, designers, poets, writers, cultural voices, artists, you know, fine arts. We'll wear these berets as a symbol of unity, me people, as a symbol of resistance, a symbol that we have decided to wear our pain openly now on our heads. And because artists influence culture, the people will follow, me people. And when people move together, politicians will eventually have no other choice than to follow us, right? Yeah, I know that this idea sounds crazy, sounds like, you know, but look at the African situation. It's already crazy, right? And maybe what Africa needs right now are these bold, extraordinary ideas that sound crazy.
Addo, what if I told you there's a new scramble for Africa happening right now? I watched this documentary called The Grab. My goodness. It's a brutal world. Now, let me tell you what. Countries like China, the UAE are running out of water. Like, for real, running out of water. And make sure that their citizenry can farm like they need to farm. They can eat like they need to eat. Thing is, we all know, when there is no food in a country, things go to the dogs. And all these countries are trying to avoid that. But the way they're going about doing it, side-eye, major side-eye. These countries and more have looked to Africa to come and solve their food crisis and their water crisis, right? And how are they doing that? From crazy things like shipping water. Imagine that. countries going into a place so that they can pump out the water and ship it away, or coming and using non-sustainable ways of farming and then shipping whatever it is that they farm to their countries with absolutely no regard for the host country's ecological problems or needs afterwards. They don't care. These corporations, these countries, they have identified countries like Zambia, where they know that their land laws are not like. So what they do is they get there because most of the people in the rural areas, especially, they live in ancestral land. But in the way they live in that ancestral land is such that they know that their great-grandfather, their great-great-great-grandfather, they lived there. They found themselves there. They have built, their own houses there. They live in that land. They live on that land. But it's not like they have any title deeds or any ownership documents to these lands. So what they're doing is buying that land right from under them, moving them away, or rather chasing them away from their own land, and then setting up these large-scale farms, which are not going to benefit that area, but everything is going to be shipped off away. America has not been spared either, all right? They're fighting the UAE a lot because they came there and planted hay, and they keep shipping it away. The thing is, they pump the underground water, a lot of it, and they do not cap the amount of water that they can pump because of maybe the laws in their area do not have a cap of how much water you can pump out. So everything that they're doing is legal. Everything they're doing it within the prescribes of the law, but unfairly. You see? So they come and plant the hay. They use the water from underground to irrigate. The water diminishes, and other farmers that are in areas that are around the farm no longer can pump from their own pumps because there's no more water in the aquifer. These corporations, these countries are using mercenaries. I usually say that word wrong, but they're using those people, and you know how nasty they can be, to give them security because they know that they may experience some resistance. In fact, the people who are doing this documentary went back to Zambia to, follow a trail of, whatever investigation, and they were frozen from getting into the country. That's how powerful these people can be. But nobody knows whether it is their documents that were not okay, as it was claimed, or there was some influence. Nobody knows, But it is quite suspicious that even that their names were on a notice board in a place that they had been detained. They were being waited for. So we are talking about very, very powerful people. And now it brings my thoughts to the things that have been happening lately, where laws are being changed here and there. And more so this thing of where freehold land was being proposed to be changed to be leasehold. Were we setting the stage for this kind of a takeover? It is scary to think about. Because you're here thinking as an individual, you're thinking, we'll have a foreigner come, buy land, next to us. But you're not thinking about people actually buying larger scale farms and actually even changing the way a place looks completely because they want to do whatever it is that they want to do firm. Watching the Zambians lose their land and a lawyer come and help them fight, get it back, and knowing that these are the minority who, and many people do not necessarily get their lands back. People do not even have the strength to fight. They do not even know where to go fight. It is scary. It is very, very scary. So people, when you hear something is being proposed, published in Parliament, zoom out. Look to see if whatever it is that they are talking about is something that makes it easier for something that is happening in lands abroad or even your neighborhood to happen here. And with that, I'll tell you, go to parliament.go.ke and look at the legislative proposal tracker. Look at all the things that have been published, where they are, what they are, and then we can figure out if something is going for public participation. It is important for us to participate. This thing of saying that they'll not listen to us, that doesn't matter. We need to publicly participate when we are called for public participation, because we cannot say that we are also blameless. We don't publicly participate because of the apathy that we have in the processes. But we need to do that, because you may refuse to do that and something is passed that affects you directly. And the crazy thing is this. All what these countries are doing, it's actually nothing personal. All they are doing is making sure that their citizenry is right. That's all they're doing. They're making sure that their citizenry is fed. Their citizenry has got water to do whatever it is that they've got to do. So it should also not be anything personal when we say no. But how do you say no when you're so heavily compromised with loans and stuff like that? And finally, this has taken too long. As we zoom out, as I said, we need to zoom out and see what it is that is happening in other countries when laws change in our own country to see how compromised we are. We also need to make it possible, like America is doing, that we consider water and food security for our country as a primary national security issue. This way, if something comes to compromise either of the two, alarm bells will ring all over and we'll be able to know, if we touch that law, that compromises us and stuff like that. And we're also able to project in the future because these resources are not getting more, they are dwindling. We need some for ourselves as well. And we need to prioritize us. Watch The Grab. It's amazing. It's an amazing documentary. Very scary. It's a horror movie documentary for people like us who are facing what we're facing currently right now in our country.
So my question is, our leaders hearing some of these utterances from these people, what are they doing? Why are they still in bed with some of these people? Because recently, I think last week or this week, Emmanuel Macron came to Africa pretending that they are now here in Africa for partnership and not to come to Africa now as a big country to bully us and also to cheat us, but they are coming as partners to these African countries. We all know you can never trust these people. We all know you can never trust these people. And I think they are finding their way through some of these puppet leaders that we have in Africa. And that is where the problem is. Because if it was the AES, that's Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, that would never happen. And they know they are now losing power in Africa. So they want to use force because they have the military equipment and everything to do so. What is Africa doing? Because the way some of these people speak when they get a chance, I all the time say that it is because we don't have anything when it comes to nuclear weapons, the missiles. We don't have them, because if we do, like these people will shut up. They will never interfere. Why are they not doing it to North Korea? Why are they not doing it to all these other countries that has all this military equipment? Because they are afraid and they know they cannot do it. And because Africa doesn't have any of that, they just say whatever and they just decide to do whatever to us. And our leaders, some of our leaders, puppet leaders, are also helping them. And that's the sad part. We live to see. We are all in this Africa. Let's see what happens. Let's see the move that they are going to make. This is what they are saying. I don't know what you think about it. Drop your thoughts in the comment section and let's discuss. Thank you so much for watching.